All right, episode 1, something to talk about podcast. My name is Corey, and this is Kyle,
What's up?
and we just always have some interesting conversations between ourselves.
Yep.
So,
Trying to get 2025 started off with a bang here.
yep, and the amount of times we've had to restart and try to figure out like the audio and mic situation to get a podcast started has been.
We're a couple country boys. We don't know shit about this technology stuff.
Yeah, it's been quite the experience. But anyways, hot topic right now is I think it's a couple days now after the 1 year anniversary of wolves being reintroduced to Colorado. I've kind of been following along with it. There's been a lot of podcasts and a lot of news and media covering this. I can kind of see both sides of it, but we're going to get into it. So basically, the backstory is, these gray wolves were native. 80 years ago, they were killed off. I guess a lot of the people that moved out west, the ranchers, decided to just shoot them. And there's actually a bounty put on them back in the day, like up to $500.
Yep. Which back then is a lot of money.
Yeah, and they were talking about, back then, if you made $30 or $40 a week, you were doing good. So, I mean, I guarantee I'd have been shooting wolves left.
Probably
and
a lot of
right.
people got rich off of it.
For sure.
For out there.
But anyways, they killed them all off, and now a bunch of the wildlife biologists and everybody was wanting to reintroduce them, and it started back in like 2014 or 2015 where people started, like these different groups started banding together, and somehow they got it put on a ballot for the whole country, the whole state of Colorado to vote on. Mm-hmm. And it was voted on, I believe, in 21 or 20 to reintroduce them. And they had like a deadline. It was like December 23rd or December 30th, 2023 to have wolves put back into, Colorado. And they were going to, first off, put them on, state ground. And anyways, it was super interesting because it's the first time anything's been passed, like a state law or regulation, whatever, introducing animals. It's the first time it's ever been done by a ballot. There's a lot of people calling it the ballot box biology. A lot of hot topics on it right now. Have you had the chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, so the ballot box biology, basically what the definition it ensures decisions reflect social values and not just scientific or political priorities. So, yeah, it's really hard to say which way to go on because there's definitely points from both directions on, they were originally there and, we killed them off. So, to keep the whole ecosystem going, maybe they would it'd be good to reintroduce them, but also they kill a lot of livestock and cost people a lot of money. So you can definitely see both sides of it.
Yeah.
Well, the whole introduction of wolves thing it first happened in 1995 for Yellowstone National Park. That's Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, New Mexico, and Colorado is where they're all at now. But originally it was just the Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. But another one of the reasons that could be good for the environment is that a lot of times the wolves, they prey on the weak or the sick.
Yep.
So they're thinking maybe, a big problem right now in wildlife is the CWD. So that would be something that it could help out with.
Yep.
But is it worth the money and the risk of, killing people's pets?
I mean, it's
not only the cattle and stuff,
project.
but $10 million is what it's costing them to do this so far. Or that's what it's going to.
Yeah. So that's what, when that got passed, they were given, I guess, through the state, $10 million to fund the project. And it was interesting because they went out to Oregon, and I guess they were able to, I don't know if they tranquilized them or whatever, but they brought 10 out, and they had them released there just shortly before that December.
I
30th.
watched the video of them
Yeah.
releasing them.
It was crazy to see them come running out of those giant cages with collars around their neck. And a lot of people, I see it both ways. They were there. But we're in Missouri. They were here too. Are we gonna release wolves someday?
Man, I don't know. I'm sure population size makes a big difference too, because there's so much open, wide, places for a wolf to be in Colorado. Here in Missouri, is pretty much populated.
Definitely makes sense for them to be in Colorado more than it does.
For
here.
sure.
But yeah, a lot of people are talking about you do have some pluses, and you've got some cons too. With they said that the deer and elk populations have gotten crazy out in Colorado. Coyote populations have gotten super crazy too, and they're hoping that bringing the wolves back, if they can be successful, will kind of keep everything in line.
We went on a elk hunt here 2 years ago out there in Colorado, and our guide was talking about it then because they knew it was going to pass at that time. So he was talking about it, and he said that a pack of wolves can come in and just decimate a herd within overnight. He said, and if they get in a certain area that he hunts, that's money out of his pocket. That's his livelihood that it's killing.
Yeah, and that's a that's a guide, I guess. And that's another thing, that there's a lot of people, you have all these outfitters and guides, all over the country. And they're, like you said, their livelihood comes on this, but there's a lot of people with pushbacks against those outfitters and stuff because they do buy all the land,
Yep.
A lot of, it's not here in Missouri, but you can kind of see, from the ranching side, you don't want your wildlife killed, but you don't have the right to shoot a wolf if you see it killing a wildlife. Like, there's no way. You can't do
nothing to them.
Yeah.
You can't even scare them off.
Yeah.
Like, you can't affect them in any kind of way.
Well, and the thing about it is, they were talking that, there's some ways that you can, like, I guess, detour them, like putting flags on a fence and stuff like that. I'm like, a wolf is smart. He's going to see that flag maybe once and be like, okay, that's different. He's going to get used to it, just like any other animal.
He's going to see that cow out there in the field and be like, oh, that's a meal. There's nobody around. I'm going to go kill it.
For sure. They're going to, once they see that and get a taste of that easy meal, it's just like a dog in a chicken coop.
Well, the ones that they had released had already killed cattle where they came from originally.
Yeah, is it
predation?
Depredation?
Predation? Maybe it's depredation.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it was. But yeah, they're releasing these wolves into Colorado, and they said within hours, whenever they released them, the wolves were already not on state ground, and you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
They
cover a lot of ground really fast.
But I can see it from a ranching side being a little pissed off about it.
For sure. Then the law was only passed by 2%.
It was
so
50,
man, it was
51 to 49.
It's a really close vote. And in my opinion, the only reason that it passed was because there's a clause in there that if you can prove that wolves killed your livestock, then they will pay you up to $15,000 a piece.
Or fair market value.
Or fair market value for the animal they killed.
Yep.
So then one of the guys I was watching on there, I think he had got paid for like eight different cattle.
Yeah.
That had been killed. I mean, that's a lot of money, and
and it's only up to that 15,000. So imagine if they come in and they kill 10, 15.
Yeah.
And with the price of cattle right now, I don't know what the market is out there, but I know around here in Missouri, it's through the roof.
Yeah. So, and that money just doesn't appear out of nowhere. That money comes from the taxpayers.
Oh, for sure.
So.
For sure. But yeah, I was listening to a few of the videos, and there were some biologists and a lot of people talking about it, and they're like, around the streams and, different areas of some of the state ground and, just in general public ground, they're talking about the woody browse, the ecosystem, all the native grasses and stuff, with the amount of elk, deer, other wildlife, it's been decimated.
Yep.
And I know some studies they did out there with that, with the wolves in the Yellowstone. It's taken not just a couple of years; it's taken several years for the, for the land to kind of come back to where they think it should be, as far as the woody browse and all the native grasses and stuff, and just the way that the streams look, because the elk and all the deer and all the wildlife out there has just done a number on the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot of elk in Colorado now. I mean, there's a lot of elk killed out there as well by hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the vote was basically passed because of Denver, Colorado Springs, and Boulder.
Yeah.
Those are the only
cities.
counties that really voted for it. Everything else was pretty much a no, and they're not introduced anywhere near Denver.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'd read something that somebody was like, well, if we can get this passed, we'll get more, there'll be more people wanting to come in, tourism, and
Yep.
see the wolves. It's like, well, if that's what you're thinking, you have no idea how wildlife works.
No.
Because if a wolf sees you and they'll see you from several hundred yards away, they're not.
you're
gonna
never
stick
going to
around.
see them. No,
Yeah.
you're never going to see the wolves. That's the people who live around them say they never see them.
Yeah.
It's just like the mountain lions. There's mountain lions here in Missouri now, but I mean, very few people ever see one.
Yeah, and very seldom do you see a trail cam picture. I mean,
No.
you see them get hit on the roads and stuff, but
Well, one of the guys that was out there, he's got trail cameras and stuff, and he said once you get a picture of one, you won't get a picture of it ever again. It'll be a different one if you get another wolf.
and that's so crazy. I guess they see the camera and they're not going to come
Well,
around.
they just know it's nothing normal in nature, so they just stay
'cause
away
they
from
are
it.
one of the most intelligent.
Oh, for sure. The way that they hunt in packs is insane.
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. After 1 year, I don't know exactly how many cows and wildlife were killed, but I know there's a lot of people that they're saying, okay, wolves used to be here, but you're taking a wolf from a different landscape that's
Yeah.
not native here. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, how do you? I mean, you can't find a wolf that's native there because there are none.
Yeah, and I mean, a wolf is a beautiful animal, and I definitely, nobody wants the wolves to go extinct.
Yep.
But at the same time, in these certain areas, there's usually a reason that people have killed them off.
Yeah. Well, and it's pretty much been for, they wanted to eradicate them for wildlife, or not for wildlife, but for their for their animals as far as livestock. And, like I said, if you're getting paid $500
Yeah.
per wolf,
And back then, when they're doing that stuff, they don't think about the ecological impact that it
No,
could
they
have in the
don't.
future.
they don't. And that's the thing, I know there's a lot of pros and cons both ways as far as them being able to, take out a lot of the wildlife and, the coyotes, the elk, the deer, whatever. But I just think ballot box biology probably isn't the way to go.
No,
I think, and a lot of the farmers say they don't get any, or the ranchers up there, they say they aren't getting they aren't getting anything from the conservation up there. Mm-hmm. So they're not being transparent. And, we see that in Missouri here, but, if you're releasing wolves and it's affecting my livestock, it'd be really hard for me not to take one out.
yeah, and just because the society thinks it's a certain way doesn't mean that it's right. If you're not educated about all of the aspects that go into it, like somebody who is a scientist who works for conservation and understands how all this stuff works, it should be in their hands instead of somebody who just watches a Disney movie and sees a wolf on there and think how cute they are.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent it should be in their hands. I do think they need to speak to a lot of people in the state that are taking part in conservation, whether that's a landowner that, tries to, conserve their ground as far as how many animals and stuff are on it. I know like here we don't get shit from the Missouri Department of Conservation on as far as wanting knowledge or, asking what we're seeing out here. We can jump into that later, but I think they could have went and talked to farmers, ranchers, different woodsmen, hunters, outfitters. I think they could have done a little bit better job before putting it on the ballot.
Yeah.
So that way everybody
Educate everybody a little bit better
try
on
to
it.
get on the same page. You're not gonna, you're not gonna please anybody and everybody. But I think it would have been a lot better, especially in the area where they were going to release the wolves.
Yeah,
they should have talked to those.
It should have been. It should have been communicated with them. They should definitely have a say over it. It shouldn't just be, oh, well, here you go. Sorry, you got wolves in your backyard.
Yeah.
Now you can't raise cattle no more.
They're going to get ate by all the damn wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't imagine and that ground out there is so much different. It's so open and vast. Like, you can't protect all of them.
No.
And it's not like you can build, because they have like hundreds, if not thousands, of cattle out there on some of those places.
Did you see anywhere or hear anything about what happens if you would kill one of them?
I know the
I'm
fines.
sure it's.
I mean, yeah,
It's got to be a felony at least. I'm sure.
Yes, fines. I mean, that guy made it. The guy that was in charge of it, he made it pretty clear that, if you kill one, there will be
you're going to jail.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure he did say jail time.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, I don't know.
The thing, if one of them wolves comes in there and kills, your pet your dog that you've had for 8 years, it's, part of your family.
Yep.
It's hard not to shoot one of them.
Well, and that's kind of my thing. What if they, at some point, do get to the suburbs of some of these bigger cities and they do start taking out some dogs or jogger?
Yeah, I'd read somewhere in California, I think, that they had done a study on the wolves, and 50% of their nutrition was coming from pets around the city.
What are these people in Colorado, in the cities, going to think when their pets start getting killed? And,
and it's going to happen.
You were the reason it got passed.
Yeah, that number's never going to be zero. It's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I know they started out with just 10. I don't know if.
I wonder how fast that number will grow.
I mean, they've already had a successful, reproductive cycle. So
I think I'd read somewhere that in Yellowstone, I think they started off with 10 to 20 of them, and I think there's like 2,000 now or something. So that was in 95.
Yeah, so it's going to take a little while.
30 years ago.
And the guy, I forget what that ranger's name is, but he said, obviously it's going to be, things are going to be restructured as time goes. And he says, pretty much up until we get to, it's either 150, I know these are way off, 150 or 500 in the population, then they'll start kind of relaxing some laws.
Yeah, and I think they said something about opening some kind of season on them to be able to kill them.
Yeah, because I mean, they're gonna populate and they're gonna do their thing. I mean, they're gonna be able to adapt to Colorado for sure.
I just don't know how you keep them in certain areas to where they affect the wildlife and not affect livestock.
There's no
because I mean that would be the ideal thing to do, but you cannot control where they go.
Yeah, because a fence isn't going to keep them in and out. I mean, they're gonna get in and out whether. And
they're gonna find they're just like anybody. They're gonna find the easiest meal they can get.
That's right.
Which is cattle.
Yeah, and a lot of the ranchers and stuff, they were bringing up that. And I know this, we had cattle, when a herd is stressed, whether they're not getting any food, the weather, a lot of times they're going to have issues producing a calf and having a successful, pregnancy. And they're talking about, okay, so you have a group of wolves and you got a herd of cattle. And they start seeing wolves, and they start seeing cows get killed and calves get killed. That's going to put a lot of stress on a herd.
Yeah.
And they're saying, okay, we're getting paid for, let's say, a couple cows and maybe a calf or two, but
how many are they losing?
Yeah, but what if it's one of your best cows that you've never had an issue with? You can't buy a good cow. You know what I mean?
And I know that the area they released them in, and some of the cattle that had been affected by it already, they are specifically bred to be able to thrive in high elevation.
Yep, that high altitude.
And they said a lot of cattle can't live and reproduce there very easily. Yep. So that strain of cattle that they have are specifically bred for that.
It's not like you can buy them from Kansas or Missouri.
No, you
and
can't
take
just
'em out there
replace
because
them.
you can't.
You have to
It's
basically
taken-
breed them yourself.
Yeah, it's taken years and years to get that kind of genetics for them to be up there.
Yep.
And that's another thing, and then on the opposite side, there was people talking about, okay, so those cows, they aren't supposed to be there either if they can't handle the high altitude.
Yep.
But it wasn't this generation that killed the wolves off.
No, it was.
If you have a ranching business out there now and you're, let's say, anywhere from 20 to 50, you weren't a part of that.
No.
Or, I mean, I guess 20 to 80, you weren't a part of that. You weren't a part of the eradication of the wolves in that area. So
what would you say is your opinion on it? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think time will tell. Personally, if I was up there and I had a herd of cows, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
For sure. Or if I was, I don't really feel too bad for the outfitters because I think they screw a lot of people anyways.
They're pretty expensive.
Yeah, I mean, they're super expensive, and they're the reason why a lot of people in the state can't buy ground, 'cause
Yep.
they're going to pay top dollar for it. We see it in Illinois, Missouri, wherever. So I don't really have any remorse for them. But, yeah, I do think it is I am in favor of putting wolves back in Colorado just to see how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I didn't have a vote on it, but I can for sure see it both ways. So I don't
So you
really-
voting yes or you voting no?
I would have voted no for sure.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, voted no.
I like the idea, but I just think that, like I said, there's usually a reason that humans do stuff like that, and I know that if I was out there hunting somewhere and you're backpacking in, that's another thing that's going to be in your mind when you're laying there at night in your tent.
Oh, for sure.
It's not that it never happens, because it does happen that they could attack a person and kill a person.
I mean, if an animal like that gets hungry enough, it'll kill anything
Yep.
and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the idea, like you said. I'm going to be interested to see how it kind of goes over the next several years to see what the population does. And
I'm not
everything.
a hard no. I probably lean no.
Yep. But I do think it's cool that they were there, and after 80 years they're being brought back. I see it from like the wildlife side, but as far as kind of how they did it with the ballot box biology and not really speaking to any ranchers or any woodsmen or hunters, I think there was a lot of shady shit that went on, and for it to only get passed by 2%, I honestly I think it's disgusting.
One thing, if they just because they release them in Colorado, don't mean they're going to stay there either. Mm-mm. I know that they've tracked wolves that have crossed over 4 states. Like they'll go halfway down the continental United States. They travel a long ways.
So then, I mean, just kind of like the mountain lions,
Yep.
they go. Well, conservation doesn't tell us that they've released them in Missouri, but we know they're full of shit.
Yeah.
They're going to travel. Next thing you know, they could be in Kansas, Nebraska,
mm-hmm.
And then maybe, hell, who knows, maybe even
they
Missouri one of these days.
They got to keep the population under control, that's for sure.
Yeah, they definitely have to monitor it, and stay on top of it, but they just need to be transparent.
The monitoring thing, too, and stuff, that isn't free. The studies
sure.
and stuff that go into it, that's more money out of our tax dollars that's going towards that.
Yep, I agree. But, yeah. No, I mean, I see it both ways. I would have for sure voted no. I feel bad for the people that are being affected by it when, the people in the city, their vote.
Yeah, when their county was totally against it, but then Denver passed it. It sucks.
Well, I mean, you see that in elections all the time,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at, the electoral college, that's one reason it was made, so that your rural people had more of a voice.
Yep.
And maybe something like that could have been better on a local scale too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but it is what it is. It's out there right now. They're there, and
yeah, it's done.
Yeah, I mean,
ain't no going back.
Been there for a year, so yeah, I'm gonna definitely stay up to speed with it. Try to at least.
It's interesting.
See kind of how that all plays out up there.
Oh yeah.